What is the emotion, or could you compare the emotions you feel in a state of isolation versus the emotions or feelings you get when you're in a state of very interconnected?
Ooh, yeah, yeah. I mean, isolation feels like it's depression. It's a cloudiness. It's no motivation to move that inertial barrier to do things. You know what I mean? Like, I will know that I need to text somebody back, and I'll sit there for 6 hours and not text somebody back. You know what I mean? And it's like building up in my mind, and then it's just like beating myself up of like, why aren't you doing this thing? You're supposed to be doing this thing. Like, you loser. Like, you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
It's like it feels like the walls are caving in. My breath gets short. I'm bouncing back and forth between what I call low self-esteem activities. You know what I mean? Maybe I'll watch TV or something like that. Maybe I'll turn off my phone that's ringing in the background right now. And I don't, in those moments, I don't love myself. I don't, and when I think about loving myself, I don't invest in myself. I don't use my time and energy to do things that make me feel good and whole and all that kind of stuff. Versus when I feel connected, like I generally feel like a tingliness in my neck when I feel connected to people. Like, you know
It's
what
like a physiological
yeah,
response.
like you know what ASMR is? Have you ever heard of that before?
I have, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I'll watch that and I'll get tingly, dude. But I can do the
How would
same
you
thing.
define ASMR?
Watching someone be authentically doing their thing without receiving any judgment from anyone else, usually with their hands is what works for me, gives me a sense of deep euphoria.
Interesting.
Just watch this person be like, I think people that like cut hair, people that give massages, people
They're
that
so in the moment.
they're so in the moment and they're so dedicated to this dexterous craft. Or watching like Bob Ross paint, for example.
Yeah.
Like all that kind
Bob
of stuff.
Ross.
It just makes me feel good inside because that's a human being at the center of their being, expressing themselves in the way that they are best able to express themselves. Someone else is enjoying it and benefiting from it, and everyone's winning in that situation.
Yeah.
And so I feel that. I can feel that very deeply. And I can feel, and once I start to feel that way, I start to feel very motivated to do things.
Yeah.
I am very proactive about reaching out to people in my life and just trying to improve their day, just sending them a text message, how you doing, this kind of stuff. I get tasks done so significantly better. And so I realize that like the energy that we share as human beings, that connected network, is really, really important. Like it's like a driving, motivating force for me, and a lack of it feels like death.
So isolation is death, connection is life.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a great way of summing that up. I think my therapist would say something similar to that.
When you look at human behavior and humanity in general, I would say it's fairly well established. We're social beings.
Right.
That was one of the reasons why the pandemic was so difficult, is people were forced to isolate, literally.
Yeah.
That was the whole shtick. And I think that caused a great amount of depression, which is this taking on the state of mind, as you're talking about, of death, disregarding the anxiety and everything else that came out of that situation. But it was the lack of interconnectivity which makes us, I would say, go toward the path of, or the state of mind of, a lack of life, a lack of energy, or lack of enthusiasm.
I agree. I even think obviously where I was in Atlanta, Georgia, we didn't have the same level of like lockdowns as I think here in California.
Mm-hmm.
But I do think I came out of that reaching probably a lowest isolation point in my life as well.
Yeah.
Coming to what flipped a switch for me in a lot of ways too was that experience of recognizing connectivity is kind of necessary. But it also flipped a switch in me recognizing that even before COVID and all that kind of stuff, modern American life is very isolating. It's this idea. I know so many people, and I was this way as well, where they isolate into their relationships, they isolate into their homes, they isolate into their small nuclear family and their business.
Yeah.
And there's just like, you just kind of get boxed out, and you basically become a cog in this like GDP wheel of what, like, you know what I mean? Like it's not beneficial to life to like go to work for 12 hours a day, come home, watch a little bit of TV and conk out and maybe high five someone. You know what I mean? Like, we need so much more than that.
It's the United States of America is the best place in the world to create a financial success or financial wealth. It is not necessarily the best place in the world to live in. It's not the best place in the world to live in all respects of life. And I think that growing up, especially like I grew up in Silicon Valley, is the entire mindset is around financial or technical success. And it's very important to for us to remind ourselves how important the rest of our life is, from our connection to the people around us and to the connection to the world, or like physical, geographic world around us. Because yes, it's good that the United States is such a wonderful place to make that kind of success. Like, you really can make anything of yourself, but it is very isolating in that sense, as if success is only shown as financial or business success. Like in the Bay Area, how big is your IPO, right?
Yeah.
Then it's easy to either forget or not even ever be aware that the rest of life is that much more important.